Brazil by Yabisi Asili. Brazil is an interesting place. I have many friends and family who have visited Brazil. Brazil is the largest country in South America. Half of the people in South America live in Brazil. Most people speak Portuguese.
Well, I grew up in Brazil. I lived in Brazil until I was 19 years old, so a long time.
Well, I was there from January to June in 2007. I lived in Brazil for about 5 months.
Okay, so I need to think about this because we're going to count it together. I was born in Brazil, so that's the first time. Then I went there when I was 4 years old, 10 years old, when I was 12, 16, 21, and then I went back there in 2006, 2012, and this year, 2013. How many times is that?
9.
9 times, there you go. So that's how many times I've been to Brazil.
I went to Brazil 3 times. The first time was in 2002. The second time was in 2003. And the third time was in 2004. And each time I went from anywhere between 1 and 3 months at a time, depending on what I had to do here and what I was invited to do there. And I haven't been back since. I haven't been back in like 9 years. I can't believe it. Really miss it.
I was in Brazil for almost exactly 1 month in the summer of 2007.
I love food. I've always loved Brazilian food. Brazilians buy food at an open air market. In the Amazon, they cook fresh fish from rivers. Brazilians make a lot of food with beans and rice. My friend Morgan told me that beans are called feijão in Portuguese.
A lot of beans, especially black beans, and rice, long white rice. That was the standard thing at lunch every day, and sometimes they would mix it up with like, today we're having brown beans, or today we're having white beans, and it was the best beans I've ever had. They always make the beans and also the rice with onions and garlic and salt. That's pretty much everything. And then on Sundays, people tend to put other stuff in the beans. There's a dish called feijoada. So the word feijão means beans. And so feijoada means like it's been beaned. You beaned it. You know, it's feijoada. You beaned it.
What food did you eat?
What food? The food that we ate every day in Brazil, like for dinner, was always rice and black beans. And then on top of that, there was some veggies and salad, because again, it's a hot place. We like to eat salad there.
I remember getting there, and I don't know what the first food I ate was, but one of the foods I remember eating first was something called acarajé, which is a sort of street food that is made out of out of a West African tradition, and they cook it in palm oil, which is one of my favorite kinds of flavors from West Africa.
My favorite Brazilian thing is actually not a food, it's a drink. Does that apply to that question, or does it have to be food?
It can be a drink.
It can be a drink? Okay. Have you guys heard of Guaraná?
No.
Okay, Guaraná, in English it's Guarana, but I don't know, in America they use Guarana or Guaraná as an energy drink. Is that right? Is that the same as what they use it for in Australia? Yeah. In Brazil, it's not an energy drink. They have something called Guaraná that's a soft drink. It's like a lemonade or something. So this is the best drink you can, I think, in Brazil. That's my favorite thing there.
Some of the foods that I enjoyed were, one of them was called bolinhos de bacalhau, and that was balls of cod. It's dried cod fish that they reconstitute and then they make into balls and fry up. And so I enjoyed eating those. And then I ate a lot of feijão, which was kind of a Brazilian rice and beans dish.
I have a Brazilian friend named Ellie who made rice and beans with me. We use black beans and white rice fried with turmeric to make it yellow. It was tasty and I really liked the rice.
It tastes bready. I like it all mixed up. Can I mix mine up?
My mom cooked beans every day from scratch in a pressure cooker, and walking home from school, just, you open the door and you smell that simmering beans greeting you home. It's very potent, and so it has a lot of meaning of love for me, and I try to do the same thing for my children. We have rice and beans every week, so it's a good way of going back to my childhood memories, and also have my children have the same memories of growing up in Brazil, and so enjoy that.
Kids go to school 4 hours in the morning or 4 hours in the afternoon. In some parts of Brazil, students must take a test to go on to the next grade. What was it like when you were a kid?
When I lived in Brazil, it was certainly a little bit calmer than Brazil is nowadays. There were a little bit less people, but it was still in Rio de Janeiro, where I was born. That was still a very big city with lots of people. So as a little girl, for example, I would only go out if I had my parents or an adult with me. When I went to school for the first time alone, I was 11, not before that, when I was allowed to catch a bus on my own. Until then, there was a school bus that picked me up. I remember for me it was a fun place. It was growing up was very much to do with my family. I had a big family in Brazil, lots of cousins, lots of uncles and aunties, and my grandparents were there. So there was a lot of family things that we did together. I remember playing a lot of games that people used to play outside, because it's a hot place most of the year. So we played a lot outside. Things that I don't even know if people play nowadays, but things like hopscotch and skipping rope and hide and seek. Lots of music games, because there's a lot of music in Brazil.
The biggest holiday is Carnival. Thousands of people come to Rio de Janeiro. They wear colorful costumes and dance in the streets.
Hi everyone, my name is Leah. I was born in Brazil, but I actually live in Australia now. I've been living in Australia for most of my life. And I'm actually the owner of the Brazilian Samba dance school here in Melbourne, Australia, and it's called Studio Samba. And I'm a professional samba dancer, so I love everything to do with Carnaval and Rio de Janeiro, and of course samba. I love the atmosphere of Carnaval. It is the biggest dance party and the biggest dance competition in the whole world. So all the time and the effort and the energy and the dance choreographies and the costumes and everything that goes into making Carnaval is amazing.
Wow. Well, when we got there, I didn't know a lot about Brazilian music, and I'm somewhat of a record collector, so I wasn't there very long before I started going around all the record stores and buying all sorts of records, and I would spend time every day listening to records at the record stores. And my favorite kind of music that I had never heard before was something called MPB, which is Música Popular Brazil, which I think is like Brazilian pop music, and there were musicians like Jorge Ben and Caetano Veloso and Gal Costa and other people like that. And then there were some other groups that we went to go see. There was a man named Mateus Alleluia that we went to go see perform live, and he was really great. And he performed with his children. And then there were some other musicians who played a traditional kind of music called chorinho, which is from like the late 1800s and the early 1900s, and they would play at this really great bar and restaurant in Salvador.
What's your favorite type of music in Brazil?
Well, I like different kinds of music. I must say though, I love bossa nova. I like very much Tom Jobim, and but I also have a very soft spot for Chico Buarque, Caetano Veloso, some of my favorites. And of Brazilian interpreters, I love Elis Regina, and he has a very sweet voice. So.
Well, when I was little, we had a lot of Brazilian music, of course, and that was all the new music that was starting in Brazil, like bossa nova, like the music I did with your mom, okay, and with Gaetano just when I was there. Bossa nova, samba, Brazilian pop music, but we also heard some American music as well. And funny enough, a lot of the American music we were listening to had Brazilian words, Portuguese words, because most people did not speak English when I was a little girl in Brazil. Nowadays, lots of people speak English, but when I was a little girl, most people did not. So it was Brazilian music or music from other countries, but translated into Portuguese.
Ooh, yeah. So I learned a lot about Brazilian music when I was there. My friends who were there were really into hardcore. I went to a lot of punk rock shows and saw all different kinds of bands that were like punk bands. And of course, samba, people playing drums, and a lot of brass bands, samba, people practicing for the big parades around Carnival. And that was fun, just to see tons and tons, like 100 people playing drums and horns. It was really awesome. Street, yeah. Then I saw a lot of Brazilian hip hop bands and learned about Brazilian hip hop. I think my favorite band that I heard of there was called Zafrica Brazil, and that it meant like Zafrica was like Africa, but and Z stood for Zumbi, who was a great king of the Palmares Quilombo. He was an escaped slave.
About 4 million Africans were brought to Brazil as slaves. When they escaped, the African slaves went into the mountains, and they created quilombos. The most famous one was called Palmares. In the quilombos, they did ceremonies traditionally like how they lived in Africa. The king of Palmares Quilombo was Zumbi. One day when Zumbi was a kid, a group of Portuguese soldiers came out of nowhere and they took Zumbi with them. Years went by. Zumbi escaped being enslaved in a missionary and went to Palmares. Zumbi was a great hero and warrior. Zumbi and the Palmares would fight the Portuguese and free the slaves. But one day when the Portuguese tricked this man named Ganga Zumba into accepting land in exchange for peace, but the land was a desert. So they went back to Palmares. The Portuguese hired Domingos Jorge Velho to kill the Palmares and Zumbi. On November 20th, 1695, Zumbi died. The people always remembered him. Many quilombos still exist to this day. The Amazon River carries more water than any other rivers on Earth. It is the largest tropical rainforest. The Portuguese colonizers started to cut down the rainforest in the 1500s. The rainforest lost a lot of trees and did not recover from it. Every 10 years, a part of the Amazon rainforest is cut down twice the size of Portugal. About 20% of Earth's oxygen is produced by the Amazon rainforest. If that rainforests are cut down by people, not only will it hurt Brazilians, but also the whole world. Kids can help stop this by remembering trees. T. Teach others about what is happening. R. Restore the environment by planting trees. E. Encourage others to live in a way that doesn't hurt the environment. E. Establish parks that protect wildlife. S. Support companies that do not hurt the environment. This was a really fun project. I love that I learned so much from this project. My favorite part was writing about the food. I love doing the interviews with my friends around the world too. I wish someday that I could go to Brazil. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
A felicidade do negro é uma felicidade guerreira. A felicidade do negro é uma felicidade guerreira. Brasil, meu Brasil brasileiro, meu grande terreiro, meu beijo.